Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the next Midweek with the Maker. I'm your host, Jeremiah Bachhaus at Umbrella Forge, and trying a few different things this time. So thanks for joining me. We'll see who pops in. If I go out of frame every once in a while, I'm trying the front camera on my phone as opposed to the flipping it around, hoping we get a little bit better video quality that way. But if somebody messages, I can't see right away. So we'll see. Kind of a learning experience as you go along with me. So a little bit of behind the scenes, have to make up the figure out how I'm doing this. Anyway, this last weekend I was demonstrating at River Edge Nature Center. It was a windy, dry day. So thankful that I did it on the Saturday and not the Sunday, because we ended up getting about 2 inches of snow. So it was perfect timing for that. I was actually able to take the axe that we've been working on it with Midweek with a Maker and had that out for display, and it became a really cool talking point for a lot of people. Was hoping that maybe somebody would recognize it from Midweek with a Maker. That hasn't happened yet, so we'll see. We'll see if that happens eventually out in the wild. So I am going to try and cross-post this stuff. So if you're watching live on Instagram, you miss a section or you want to be able to scroll through it, I'm going to try and put that up on YouTube as well. Try and get a few more followers that way so that people can scrub through the videos. That's a new word I just learned. And hopefully get something out of it. So here we go. We got our axe here. This nice little user. Last time I spent a little bit of time talking about which handle to use. This is the handle. Nice little hiking handle. I also talked a little bit about how I don't make a big distinction between a working axe or an axe or a hatchet, because the work is about the same. So some people might call this a hatchet. I'm going to call it an axe. It's just easier, monosyllabic versus polysyllabic. But I want to spend a little bit of time talking about axe handles this time. I had mentioned a book during my last Midweek with a Maker called Shop Class as Soulcraft. And it's by Matthew B. Crawford. I have a link in it on the previous video, I think, on YouTube. So check that out. They won't let me post links yet because I don't have enough followers and all that. So again, you can help me out that way. Matthew Crawford is a philosopher and a motorcycle mechanic. I really enjoy his books because he has a really great way of bringing philosophy into a tactile world. And that's something that I super appreciate as well. I spend a lot of time thinking about philosophy as I'm doing my work and trying to do my work to the best possible ability that I can. Sometimes I'm very Platonistic in that, where I'm trying to approach the ideal. I want this to be as good as I possibly can to whatever. If you think of an axe and what a perfect axe is, that's what I'm trying to make. But in art, you apply philosophy as well. So philosophy, in fact, Plato says art needs to show techne, in Greek, techne, which means ability, skill, craftsmanship. That's the key word, craftsmanship. So you are imposing your will upon a piece of art, of volitional art. So that's more what I do in the blacksmith world, in the forging world, is I take a block of steel or iron or metal of some sort, and I impose my will upon it to make it be a shape that I want it to be. There's another type of art out there called stochastic, or maybe a simpler word is diagnostic, a diagnostic art. And everybody's familiar with this, but we don't use those terms typically. Stochastic artistry is something that you experience when you go to the mechanic or you go to the doctor. This is a practice of art, really. So you have skills, you have knowledge that you now apply to looking at a mechanism, a machine, the human body or a car or something like that and say, how does this work? Why is it not working properly? What can I diagnose? And we artfully try and work within the system that's there. In my axes, I try and bring both of those things together. So I do a velational artistry as I'm trying to make my axes. So start with the lump, forge it the way that I want it to. So that's all me. When it comes to the axe handles, I don't make the wood. So I have to work with what's there. I have to identify traits in the wood and try and utilize the traits and get it to work the best way that it possibly can. So in diagnostic artistry or stochastic artistry, what I'm doing is I'm looking at this handle, trying to see the form. That a part I can impose my will on. But the layers that make it up, that is set somewhere else, not by me. So in identifying what is going to make a really good axe handle, the very first thing you do is you pick it up and you look down it so that you sight down to see that it's straight. And yes, axe handles have curves. So if you twist it just a little bit, you'd be like, whoa, it's way off. So I go down and I just kind of go back and forth to make sure that I'm right on line. So if it's straight across the whole outside of it, we're looking really good. We're on a great start. The other thing, and probably the more important thing, is looking at the grain structure. And ideally, you want the grains of the wood to go from end to end. Anytime they shear off, you have end grain basically exposed, that is setting yourself up for a potential issue with breakage or premature breakage, especially if the axe handle is not taken care of. And we want to make sure that those lines are running in line with the way that the axe is going to be used. If they're perpendicular to how the axe is going to be used, it's great to have your lines there, but then you're going to have separations. You're going to have end grain exposed during each curvature of the handle. So it's a less than ideal striation pattern for the axe handle. So perfectly in line with the use of the axe is ideal. Perpendicular to it is the least ideal. And then you have all of your grades in between. It's not uncommon when I go to the store and I need to get a handle quick for me to spend a few minutes just pulling every single axe handle out and looking down it to check the grain. Just as a tip, if you do that, put them back. Be nice, okay? Go through, find the one that you want, keep them orderly, and then put them back. Let's be nice to the people who are working retail out there. We're all on the same team here. There's another thing to notice in the color of the wood. If you get sapwood and heartwood, I try to get it with just the sapwood and not the heartwood, the darker color. When you have that difference in color, it can be, I should know my role here. I'm a blacksmith, not a woodworker. When I see two different colors in wood, I start to get a little nervous about it. So I'm not going to go any further into what could potentially be going on there. So straight grains, same color. That's where we're going to start off and say, hey, that's the type of handle that I want. I order my handles from a company called House Handle Company out of Missouri. I order the premium, no varnish, unfinished. What happens now in commercial enterprises is they'll take their axe handles and they'll dip them in some sort of varnish or shellac, and it makes them real shiny and smooth as they're sitting on the shelf for months and months and months and months and months. But when you actually try and use it, that thing, I've actually gotten more slivers from shellac than I have from wood. So if you get one from the books or from the store, take a card scraper or a piece of glass or something and scrape all that stuff off, because you want to expose the wood. That's the good stuff. And then, so yeah, House Handle Company. I get them. They're a little bit thicker on the knob, which is fine right down here on the goat's foot. I like that because it gives me a little bit more material to when I try and fit the axe finally. It gives it something to hold on to. And it also gives me a little bit of time to put my velational art into the actual handle as well. So I'll sit there and I'll grind that and make it whatever I want it to be. So I'm going to take just a second here. I've been talking for a long bit. Hopefully somebody's on board. If somebody's on board, can you give me a thumbs up or a little bit of feedback so I can see that I'm in frame, because I cannot see at all. So I'll be right back. Well, that was kind of a waste because nobody appears to be on. But we'll see. I'm going to leave that in. Whatever I put on YouTube is not going to be very heavily edited, as you probably noticed. I'm not very good at that. But so that's a really brief rundown on axe handles and trying to pick them out and some tips there. When you don't have any finish on the wood, you have to be careful. American hickory, that's what I get from House Handle Company. It can start to dry out. Hickory is it's amazing. It's a wonderful wood. It's all my axe handles, all my hammer handles are American hickory. It's got some good whippiness, but it's got some other characteristics. Every once in a while, it'll start checking or cracking. So you want to do something to put a finish on there. I actually soak mine in boiled linseed oil for at least a day, pull them out, and then let them polymerize or dry out for a while until, and I've had it, I did one axe out of gray elm. So just before it starts to spalt, it's got some interesting coloration on there. Elm is great because it's a stringy wood. It doesn't like to break. That's why it was used historically as pegs for timber frame constructions, because it's a great wood for that. I let that thing soak for 2 days, 3 days, and then I let it cure for months, and it would still weep some boiled linseed oil. So that was an interesting learning experience there. It'll polymerize. It'll basically form an outer shell, and that protects the wood, keeps it moisturized just enough, and you can go to town and you can work with that. For me, any axe that comes out of Umbrella Forge with a handle on it, I stand behind the axe head. If I screwed up somehow, I will make that right. Axe handles, because they're wood, because we expect them to break at some point, I don't offer any kind of warranty or guarantee on axe handles. But I do order them. Like I said, I order them specifically from a commercial enterprise so that you don't have to come back to me to get a new axe handle. You can order them from House Handle. You can run down to your nearest hardware store. You can pick up an axe handle and rehandle it yourself. So, yeah, I think that's about it. So now we've got the axe. It is heat treated. We've got that beautiful ring out of it. It actually rings a little bit when I'm holding it in my fingers now, which is a really great addition. This hatchet handle just barely doesn't fit into the socket here, into the eye. Looking at the shape of the eye and looking at the shape of the eye on the axe, what I really want to do is I want to remove some material right in here. And I think that's going to allow, in fact, if you can see, there's a little swoop here. So I might even only have to take that little last bit off to get it to slide down. When it comes to fitting an axe head, it's a lot of put it on, take it off, put it on, take it off, put it on, take it off. So we go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth that way. So I'm going to set up on my vise here. I'm going to try and reframe the shot so you guys can see what I'm doing. Final thing to mention, modern axes are from relatively new growth trees. So the handles are thicker in this direction, actually pretty much all the way around from historic axes. Historic axes, old growth, you got tighter rings on the tree, growth rings on the tree, so you can go a little bit thinner. You can be thinner than what the axes are typically that you buy at the store. You can spend a little bit of time and shape them. And there's a pros and cons to that. When they're thinner, they're easier to hold, they're easier to use. They don't make your hand, you don't have to death grip it so hard or out of your normal. If they're too thin, you've also got the similar problem where you got to grip it too hard. You want to have the wood handle to act a little bit like a shock absorber so that you're not shoving all of that concussive force into your wrists and elbows and shoulders and all that stuff. So I thin them out just a little bit. This one actually has a little swell. So I'm probably going to spend some time and just shape that guy nice and smooth and fairly even. So take a little bit of time. If your grain structure allows it with that straight grain, you can get actually fairly thin with these guys. So just be mindful of the trade-off of if it's too thin, it's going to break. All right. So give me a little bit of time here. I'm going to set up the tools that I need for making this axe fit. And it's, I love my little vise here. Let's see, can I shift it so that it's in frame, or do I got to move the whole? Let's do this. I'm trying to keep talking and working at the same time. That's one of the hardships of what I do. If I take too long, I'm going to if I take too long concentrating on talking, I could really hurt myself. So I try and balance those things out. When am I talking? When am I working? Hopefully the recording is coming through a lot better this time. I got a gift of this microphone. So all right, so I've got a draw knife right here. This is one that I made. It got nice and rusty, as most of my tools do, because this is not a woodworking shop. This is a blacksmith shop. I put a vise in a vise so that I can hold my anything that I don't want to get hurt or too gummed up by the steel jaws here. I have this set of ice that I put some plywood in, and it holds it a lot softer. When it comes to shaping eyes on here, just be mindful the grain flow. Sometimes I might actually turn the draw knife around and cut in just because of the way that it's chipping out. I don't really take too much off at each cut, so it doesn't typically become an issue for me. But I go with little cuts where I'm shaving off just the tiniest bit. As a blacksmith, I don't know, maybe there'll be some guys who are upset with me, but there are options when it comes to a draw knife. You can do bevel up or you can do bevel down. And I've tried to figure out which one works best for me. It's usually bevel up. But I've read and heard from some people that it all depends on how much you're trying to take off each time. So you can see I didn't really take off all that much, and already that axe almost fits. So we're gonna shave off just a little bit more. I want to see that swoop kind of come out. the biggest thing, and I don't know if this is right or not, but it's what I do, is, I don't really know much about wood, but I do know about blades, and I can push straight down on this and it's not going to cut me. But if I push down and then slide my thumb at all, it cuts really deep. So when I'm using a draw knife, I'm not just pulling straight back. I actually pull to the side a little bit and allow it to slice ever so slightly through the wood. I find I get really nice pieces that way. It saves me from having to work too super hard on this. So there it is, just nice and gentle, and I can already just slightly wedge it on there. Then I look down the top so that I can see exactly where is this, where is it connecting? What's stopping it from sliding up? This is also a great time to start making sure that it's going to come down in line. If you take too much off on one side of the wood, it can cause the bit to twist. Now, and ideally, we want it perfectly in line with that grain structure. A little bit of a twist is actually not going to matter all that much. I like to have it as perfectly as possible, like I said, but we also find that line. So now, after just wedging it on, I can see a really dark spot there and a really dark spot there and a little bit back here on the back side closer to the pole. This has still some rough texture to it from the actually milling of the handle. So I'm not going to take much off of the back really at all. I'm going to try and concentrate my efforts on the front here, and I want to smooth that round that out just a little bit more. So we'll put in here, I'm going to start with the darkest and the thickest side. And I'm just going to shave. And if I can shave it all the way the length of the axe handle portion that's intended for receiving the axe head, I'm a little bit ahead because obviously it swells the further down the wood it goes. So I already know that it's going to get tight again down there. Right now, I'm just running this ever so lightly over the whole back here, so I'm taking some of that texture off so that it's nice and smooth. You might be able to hear that in the microphone. I don't know. If it's terrible, I'm sorry. So you can see smooth, rough, smooth, rough. A little bit more here. And just like with everything, it's best to go from the known to the unknown. So I'll start by working where I see the dark spot, the schmutz left from the first fitting, and then work it back. Ooh, don't take too much here. So that's where the grain started. So now I'm just using this almost like a card scraper. Or not almost, I'm using it exactly like a card scraper. Because this is where the grain has switched sides. And I accidentally bit in a little deep. Which is fine because a lot of this actually is going to get cut off once I fit the axe head right where it's supposed to be. And now we're significantly further already, and I haven't done much work to this piece. So here's a fancy trick. For this next section, I always use a dead blow hammer. You can use a weighted leather mallet or something like that. Hold it here, whoops, and hit the handle, not yourself. You can see just those couple bumps knocked that piece all the way through. And now it actually sheared off the next areas where I know it needs to come off. I can sight down and see that this axe is is super in line with that handle. So things are looking really, really good for this axe build. The hard part, the reason that works is physics. So wood, I hit this, the axe head, the weight of the head actually holds it in place, and the wood is going to drive through in the void of the eye. The hard part comes when we need to take it out. Usually that sticks. So we use I have different punches that I can use, but if it's loose enough, which it seems to be, I can just wiggle it off. So that setup of making sure we have I keep looking up here like that's where the camera is. That setup of that hourglass shape really helps me to have a nice release on the axe. Now, one thing we're mindful of when we set an axe head is there's this kerf cut right here. That's for receiving a wedge to spread it out. That needs to be at least halfway down the axe head. So if you put it too high, the strands, the grain of the wood isn't going to be strong enough to hold it in place. And if you put it too low, you're not really going to get enough of a bulging on the top to hold that axe head in place. So right around halfway is where I'm looking to go, which for this axe is going to put it seated somewhere right around there. I'm not worried about drawing a line or anything right there, because where it's stopped this time I can see it's still got about 3/4 of an inch to go. So we can put it back in here and take a little more out. Being mindful of that grain structure. Getting a good sliding cut even as I'm scooping. And I like to get this close, but not all the way by hand tools. I'll actually do the final finish on the grinder. I'll set it to a slow speed, and I'll sand this down. If I'm really bad, if it's really, really far off, I'll actually use a rasp, a wood rasp. I have a wood file here that I can use just to smooth things a little bit, but the rasp is nice because it goes, you pull back and forth and you keep pushing the whole time, and it cuts going both directions. Files only cut one direction, so I'm lifting and placing it, and what I will end up with, though, are some lines that I don't necessarily like. And sometimes those can be surprisingly deep. So, always mindful of the finish that I'm leaving behind. That's what takes the most time in any job, is the finishing. Carpentry. I did some construction work for a while, which was fun. I really like the rough-in carpentry. I don't like the finished work. Honestly, I think it's because I'm too fussy. One of my mentors is quick to say, as a blacksmith, you can be as precise as you want to be. The hard part is shutting it off. To that, you got everybody that says better is the enemy of good, all those types of things. And I understand what they're getting at. There comes a point where we just waste too much time, and we're not going to make money on our jobs that we're working if I just sit there and try and make it absolutely perfect. But I want to be proud of my work at the same time. So trying to find that line. So we drive that in. That sets really nice. Sight down it. Yeah, I'm actually really happy with how that axe handle sits in there. So that's actually a really good looking little hiking axe. I can see a little bit of daylight all the way, well, not on the front and the back, but on the sides I can see a little bit of daylight, which means that it's swollen just a little bit more on the bottom than the wood. So the steel is wider than the wood, which means I need to drive it down just a little bit further. But I want to check myself here. So what can happen is if that kerf cut is closer to the top, it's further than halfway, I can actually continue that cut. I just go get an axe and drive it down. But it looks like it can actually go up a little bit further. So I'm in a pretty good spot. Only just the slightest bit holding that in place. And I'm not going to worry about trying to get all that black stuff off right now. Part of that is just soot residue from the quenching process when we put that whole axe head into the oil, and then we put the whole axe head into our hot shot oven, and it cooked off that oil, especially that oil that was on the inside. So we actually like that because it gives us an idea of where we're stuck. And then we notice it stops ringing once we get that axe handle put on. Oh, that looks great. That looks great. There's just the slightest bit of daylight through there. I don't get too worked up because of how tight that is already. In the final fitting, we'll actually put this into an arbor press, and we'll push down. We'll put a little bit more tonnage on there and really seat that axe. And then when we put our wedge in, this top part spreads out, and it's going to be wonderful. So everything is lined up the way we want it. So we're looking really good for a little hiking axe right here. So there is setting an axe head. Take that off, and we're looking good there. Heard just a couple things. I'm going to check the meters here. Nope, doesn't look like anybody's got some people watching. So hi, thanks for joining me. At this point, we've got the axe head that fits on the axe handle. And so what I really need to do at this point is, I guess, change the angle of the camera. Oh, sorry. Hopefully you took your Dramamine. We'll come up here. Drop down ever so slightly. All right. That's about eye level here. So again, if you guys notice that I've got the camera set up stupid, let me know. I'm trying to use the front camera for better video quality. So the axe head, axe handle, what I really need to be focusing on right now is the girth, the thickness of the axe handle. I want to shape this up to where I want it to be really nice and able to receive the or be used comfortably in the future. I really want to keep the forge finish on this axe. So instead of going around and trying to true up all on the insides and the entire perimeter or profile of the axe, I'm only going to concentrate on the bit because I think it's just really cool looking. I want to preserve some of that as this axe gets closer and closer to completion. So there are a number of different ways that this can be done. First, you can take a file and you can try and file your bevels in on your axe. The reason we can do that mostly is because we have this clad in the mild steel, which we talked about in one of the previous videos. Pro tip, whenever you do filing on an axe, always file away from the edge. When you get time to actually start honing, that's when you can use some swirling motions, but never file directly into the edge. I know you're going to end up with a burr, I know you're going to end up with a burr, but it's better to have a burr than multiple stitches because the file skates off and you run your finger right into it. So always file away. And remember, only one direction. Never pull your file with any pressure at all as it's moving backwards. You're going to take those edges and you're going to dull them right out. So the other option I point over here is to use the fancy grinders. Now, understanding that this axe has been fully heat treated, we need to be mindful that it doesn't overheat at all. As soon as that thinnest part of the edge discolors, it's shot. You're in big trouble. So use fresh belts as much as you can. Dunk in water, cool it off, cool it early, cool it often, and then do it again. So you can keep that all cool, so that the temper that we spent so much time in a controlled environment, thanks hotshot ovens, now is preserved so that this tool can last more than a lifetime. That's also why when I grind, I don't use gloves. I hold on to my pieces with my bare hands. I can feel the temperature as it starts to go up. I can't tell you like what temperature is this. Is 65 degrees. No, I mean, is it warm? Is it time to cool off? All right. My tactile senses actually help me out to preserve the quality of my tools. So I don't wear gloves. Some people do. Some people do their grinding before the heat treat. Cool. I try and do as little grinding as possible. So that's why I forge my pieces down as far as I do. Same goes with shaping the axe handle. You can use rasps, files, and sandpaper. I do a lot of my shaping on the grinder. So that's where I spend quite a bit of my time whenever I start coming to the conclusion of an axe. So that's actually where we need to move to now, is to the grinders and get things going over there. So I'm going to rotate the camera angle. I'm going to set up the grinders here, and we'll do a little bit of grinding. Given the way that my camera works, I actually can't see if we have any viewers right now. So if you are viewing, thank you. If you're not, thank you. Thanks for stopping in. So again, I got my Ameribraid fastback, and I've got my Wilmot tag. Those are the machines that I use the most for my grinding. Absolutely recommend them. I'm going to set up right now. I'm going to set up the Ameribraid for grinding the wood, and I'm going to set up the Wilmot. Actually, is just fine for grinding on the axe. I don't typically go too heavy on the wood grinding. In fact, I'll use that one. I'm going to use an 80 grit for shaping on the wood. Unlike with steel, where you have to go to super high grits to get really nice finishes, 800, 2000. I've actually got 3000 grit that I use from time to time. Wood, you can stop at about 220, and it'll work just fine. And so I have been known to take my 220, and then I'll put some quadruple aught steel wool and run it over the top after it gets the boiled linseed oil on it. And then I love what I got there. So I'm setting up my dust collector here underneath the wood. That's what I'm most concerned about. I'm going to put my safety glasses on. I'm going to mute the microphone here, so hopefully, I don't know if it's going to kill all the sound or not. So again, if you're watching, give me a little bit of feedback here, so I'll go over and check and see if that works or not. But I don't want to put the super sensitive microphone right up next to the grinder and blow your guys' speakers out. So I think I'm ready to go here, so I'm going to mute and get to work. So I'm just assuming that nothing was recording there. So I'm setting up the bevels on my axe here. I'm doing this by eye, trying to make sure that that center line for the edge is right in the middle. I've got good angles coming off. You can always come back. There are these different gauges that you can check to see exactly where you're at. Right now, I'm at a approximately 35 degree angle. So this is total angle. So as whereas with a knife, it divides right through the center of the edge and your angles are like 50 degrees or whatever, and it's just one side, it would actually be 30 degrees total. This is 35 degrees total angle of this line to this line. So it's a little bit of a different idea with maybe 36 degrees, 34. So I come back and try and check the gauge, make sure I know right where they're at. 30 tends to be a really nice degree angle for getting good penetration. This one's so thick. I really want this to be a pretty heavy duty service, do whatever you want it to axe. So right now I've got that grind really shallow. I'm probably going to bring it back another 3/8 of an inch, and that'll help decrease the angle, help it to cut in. But I still want to keep a lot of support there. One of the things that I look out for is that weld line starting to show up, which I am seeing it, which is awesome. So then you know that you've got exposed high carbon steel in the middle. You don't need to worry about it too much when you see that weld line. It doesn't necessarily mean that the weld is bad. It will start to show up, A, when you're using a heavier grit like I am, B, when you're pulling it directly away from the weld like I am. You can also see it when you start to get to higher grits as well. So just because there's a little seam there doesn't mean that the axe is not good at all. In fact, they're still very, very serviceable axes. If you look at some of the museum pieces that we have, you got weld lines everywhere. You can see them. So clearly they've lasted for a long time. I think I'm going to stop working on the axe right here, right now. I'm going to shape the handle just a little bit, and because I'm using the grinders, I'm not able to interact with you guys so much. So I'll probably do a little bit of grinding on the handle, and then I'm gonna end this week's Midweek with a Maker, and probably do another one where I'll film and then do either voiceover or music or something like that, and post that on YouTube. So check one more time if anybody's talking. Nope. All right, back to grinding. So actually, I'm going to switch out my attachment. Right now, I've got the platen, actually the combo platen, they call this, from Ameribraid on there, which is great. But because I've got the contours to an axe handle, remember, real axe handles have curves. We want to accentuate those. We don't want those to go away. So I have this other tool attachment, if I can get it out. So this is their rotary platen, and it's actually got a soft section to it that'll allow it to receive some of the curves that I want. Now on this 80 grit, it's just a solid belt. Some of the scalloped belts out there, those are really great for doing contours as well. But we're just roughing. Ouch. We're just roughing right now, so we're going to leave it with just use care and caution as we're making this work. All right. Oops. All right, so I'm already going to switch out from this 80 grit to 120 grit with the scalloped edge because I want that contouring. And the nice thing is with 120 grit and on wood, so aluminum oxide here for these belts that I'm using on the wood. The 120 is still going to, and this is a slightly used one, is still going to take away a lot of material, and we're going to end up, it's already nice and thinner. Yeah, I'm spending time to make sure I know exactly where that edge is going to be. So this is coming out really nice. All right, my friends, that's probably where I'm going to stop it. We've been going for about an hour now. Again, I'm going to try and cross post this, but I've got the axe's shape. One of the things I like to try and look out for is this little bit right back here. This sometimes is called the goat's hoof or goat's foot. I like to call it the bird's beak from my one of my other jobs. It just catches your hand. So this is when you're really swinging, this is gonna prevent that axe from going out of your hand. So I've got a little bit more shaping to do, but you guys get the basic idea there. So sorry about that little bit of silence that happened, but here we are. We can just lightly put this thing together. And this is the look we're getting from the first axe build on Midweek with the Maker. So thanks for joining me for a while. If you think this works out, this format, let me know. Give me a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And please head over to YouTube. Give me the like and subscribe over there as well so that I can start broadcasting over there as well. So really appreciate your help. You're spending time with me. So thanks for joining me with Midweek with the Maker. Let's get making.